If you like to make your NFL games a little bit more interesting, you've come to the right place. It's the Even Money Podcast with Ross Tucker and Steve Fezzik.
Yeah, Vegas, baby, Vegas. It is the Even Money Podcast, and we have got your conference championship game bets today. And we'll dive into all the prop bets that we like, as well as the parlays on Thursday's edition of the Even Money Betting Podcast. You've come to the right place. Can't highly recommend enough two things. Number one, turn notifications on so that you get a chance to listen or watch this show, youtube.com/RossTuckerNFL, as soon as it is posted before some of these lines change. Number two, as a reminder, especially over the next couple weeks with the conference championship games and the Super Bowl, you're going to want to see all of these props and parlays in black and white. There's only one way to do that. It's patreon.com/RTmedia. You become a Tuckheads member. You get access to our private Slack channel where we have threads for all of our shows, the College Draft Podcast, the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, and our guy Sean Grady, a.k.a. Grades, the Australian sensation. He posts the most beautiful, well-done spreadsheet every single week, and you can check it out. Patreon.com/RTmedia. Here's what we got for you. We're going to go over last week's bets in the divisional round because, unlike other shows, we are 100% transparent. We show our work and our results every single week. And by the way, could have been better, but we had another winning week, which is awesome. Then we will give you our bets for the conference championship Sunday against the spread, maybe a teaser, maybe the totals. And then Thursday will be big because then we'll have Dr. Chow with the injury information, such as Zach Charbonnet for the Seahawks and what that means. And then we'll get into our props and our parlays and any potential line moves. When I say we, of course, I'm talking about the great Steve Fezzik at Fezzik Sports on social media. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. All of our show stuff is at Ross Tucker Pod. Can't possibly highly recommend following us enough. Steve's the only two-time winner of the Super Contest. And in the two contests in Vegas, brought home over $120,000. Which one was 50, Steve? Which one was 70?
So the Westgate Super Contest, I won the second half contest, and I got a piece of another, the last third of the year, $57,500 from the Westgate, $70,000, circa millions. I love the circa. I got ninth out of 6,000 people. So when you think about that, of course, I tied for ninth with five other guys. But it's like making a final table of a main event in the World Series of Poker.
All right, so I have a question about that actually, quick. So for the year, and we'll get to our last week's bets, but for the year, I am up 57.9 units. You are up 17.5. So, and I know there are people that pay for your picks over at pregame. How are you doing that well in the contests, and in particular the Circa contest, as opposed to, me having, a better season here on the Even Money Podcast than you? Explain that.
Yes, because I am a contest specialist where the contest lines come out midweek. I don't need to submit them until Saturday, and I take full advantage of line moves and injury information, Dr. Chow and others reporting on that, and a lot of people just pick who they like, and they submit early, and so I've always done better in contests than I've done in my own selections for my service. Having said that, it's almost embarrassing. My college football was tremendous this past year, so I wound up, plus like 50 units for the season for overall football, but really, it was my college season that was tremendous.
You know what? Before we dive into last week's NFL games, let's discuss that. Did you have bets on last night's game, Steve? The Indiana and Miami. Did anything jump out to you about that?
So I got a tip that Marion was, he's a Miami number 2 wide receiver, was going to get covered. This is from Dr. Bob Stoll. Was going to be covered by the number 1 corner for Indiana, and Marion one catch for 6 yards. So that was I had some Marion's pizza, or which I had from Dayton, Ohio, to celebrate that. My favorite pizza, Ross. But I also had the first quarter under 10, kind of similar to the Super Bowl. We always like to bet the Super Bowl under first quarter, and I do that in the championship game. Typically, teams tend to be too conservative, and we saw that, or very conservative, to start the game, and then it loosens up later on.
What do you mean you had a tip? Is this like insider information, or?
I listened to his podcast. And
What's his name?
That was one of his recommended bets, and I was like, oh. And I did some research. I'm like, dang, that's a good bet.
Okay, and how many catches was he supposed to have?
His over-under was 41 reception yards. He caught one catch for 6 yards.
Interestingly, they threw him the ball a bunch in the second half of the game on deep shots, but he wasn't able to come up with them.
Yeah, so maybe in retrospect, I should have played catches under instead of yards under, but we got away with it.
It worked. All right, let's get into last week, Steve. For the week, I was up 0.8 units. You were up 3 units. Here's what happened. We went 1-0, by the way, on our best bet, because our only best bet was teasing the Bills and the Seahawks. We took the Bills up to 7.5, the Seahawks down to -1.5. I only put 2 units on it. I was a little bit of a scaredy cat. You put 3 big units on it, and it hit. So that was our best bet for the week. The Saturday teaser legs, if you will. It was Bills Broncos. The Bills were getting the 1.5. They were a great teaser leg. You had said last week, Steve, that they'd be a great teaser leg if it was the other way. I think for one day the Broncos, it had flipped, and it was the Broncos the other way. I don't know what else there is to say about that game other than obviously some questionable officiating that Bills fans in particular really did not care for in overtime.
Yeah, really, really close calls. And if there's one weakness of football, and I'd say basketball also, that makes baseball the purest game, there's inevitably going to be too close to call calls, right? And that was a foul. That wasn't a foul. That was a penalty. That was a catch. That wasn't a catch. And actually, I'll say golf is the purest form. How often is there a golf situation other than maybe at DeChambeau saying an anthill is animal obstruction, right? That it comes down to a close call or not.
Then we had Seahawks-Niners. Interestingly, Steve, you leaned to the under 45.5. The Seahawks scored 41 points. We had teased the Seahawks down from -7.5 to -1.5. That game was a bummer. That game was never competitive, as the Seahawks got an opening kickoff return and just totally smashed the 49ers.
Even more injuries. I talk about live wagering, and this was a classic example. You see Tonjes getting hurt. You see C-Mac getting injured. The team is already decimated. It's not going their way. And it was a one-way freight train of Seattle throughout the game.
We move on to Sunday. Sunday was disappointing, for me at least. Texans, Patriots. You didn't have a bet on the game. You leaned Patriots, laying the 3, and that ended up being the right decision. As you know, I took the Texans and the 3 points, Steve, for 1 unit, and I took the under for 1 unit. I really did not expect that many points. The Patriots won 28-16. The reason why there was that many points is there was a pick 6. There were other turnovers that led directly to points. And honestly, Stephon Diggs and Kayshon Boutte made incredible touchdown catches. I mean, incredible touchdown catches. And the Texans, I still, my handicap was that there was no way C.J. Stroud would play as poorly on Sunday as he had on Monday night against the Steelers. Steve, he might have been worse. He might have been worse. I mean, the Texans have a real problem there when you have everybody saying in the second half they should put Davis Mills in. Anyway, it would have been a competitive game if C.J. Stroud didn't. In the last two games, I lost track, but he had, what was it, 7, 8, or 9, and most of them were pretty horrendous turnovers.
Yeah, nobody lost more money in future earnings than C.J. Stroud, right? Because coming up on that fifth year, there is no way he's going to get, a big contract after that performance. And what's frustrating to me, if you're having an off day, you're not seeing things well, use your legs, man. Like you got to run the ball, and he seemingly was unwilling to do that as he's getting smashed, just in the pocket. Roll him out, do something different.
Rams, Bears. I had a unit on the Bears, which ended up coming through as the Rams won by a field goal in overtime. What a pleasure, by the way, Steve, to be in the building, Soldier Field, for that game. Just an incredible, incredible game. Obviously, I'll remember the Caleb Williams play forever. Out of curiosity, Steve, was there any part of you that thought the Bears should immediately go for two? Or with 18 seconds left, Rams having 2 timeouts, was it better to kick the extra point? Because if you're Ben Johnson, you're probably thinking, man, the Rams are going to be shell-shocked after that one. McVay brought the whole team together because I think he was really worried that mentally they would be donezo.
It's a really close call. If there was 38 seconds left, you got to just kick the extra point. 18 seconds, you go for 2, and if you get it, you mortar kick down to the 5-yard line, 6 seconds, get run off on the kickoff. There's not enough time for the Rams to score. I would have gone for 2 because you were the underdog, and also, in the frigid conditions, you can miss the extra point. It does happen, and how inadequate do you feel if that's the case? But I very much respect what Ben Johnson said, that he wasn't comfortable with the 2-point play that he wanted to run, and so I'm fine with it.
Got it. You leaned to the under, by the way, in that game, and that came through as well. We talk about this more on Thursday's show when we go over our props and parlays. I will say I think it's worth noting on today's show 2 things. One is that we had a best bet on Colston Loveland over 4.5 catches. That was brutal. I mean, first of all, a couple times bad throws from Caleb Williams to him. Secondly, he gets hurt, and then right after he gets hurt, what did Kmet have? 2 or 3 catches after that?
Yeah, so he winds up with 4 catches. He gets targeted, 9 times? And a couple of the targets would have been completions, but Caleb, I'm not saying it was an uncatchable ball, but he certainly made it very difficult for Loveland. So a confluence of unlucky events. He wound up with 56 yards, so his yardage went over by a couple yards, and his catches went under by half a yard.
By the way, your parlay is going to end up hitting under the DraftKings early exit program because you had the over on Walker, which hit, the under on Darnold, which hit, Seahawks -7, which hit. You had the over 48.5 on Charbonnet. But with DraftKings, I don't know if anybody else even has that. With DraftKings, Steve, they have that first half early exits program. So Charbonnet getting hurt, it voids those player props, so you don't lose.
Yeah, not only do you not lose, but when you put a player like Charbonnet, we played the 4-teamer, obviously, with Walker and Charbonnet over, Darnold under, and Seattle -7. Okay, it doesn't pay plus 650 or whatever it was anymore, so now it pays plus 350. That's huge. And, hey, accolades to DraftKings. You always want to play at a book that offers something that nobody else offers. And so that early exit pricing where you can have a guy, your dude can go down late in the second quarter, and that's exactly what happened with us. and it just voids that leg of the parlay. Very, very strong.
I love it. On our best bets, we are 109 and 63 on the year. That is 63% on our best bets. Let's move on to the conference championship games and some of your incredible email questions. More great stuff right after this. Managing your money doesn't have to be a struggle this year. Monarch is the all-in-one personal finance tool designed to make your life easier. We all are trying to be better with our expenses in 2026. Let Monarch help you. You get 50% off your subscription with the code EVEN. Look, do a financial reset here in the new year. And how about building some goals that actually stick? This new year, achieve your financial goals for good. Monarch is the all-in-one tool that makes proactive money management simple all year long. Use the code EVEN at monarch.com for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com using that glorious code EVEN. I've got the best Valentine's Day gift ever that she will never see coming. How about a brand new shower or a brand new full bath? You could even do the windows or the doors, or that full house flooring, but I feel like especially a new bathroom or a new shower, she would be ecstatic. It's westshorehome.com/Ross, and right now, they've got this insane winter savings event where you get free installation on your next project, 18 months of no interest financing, and you can get started with no money down. Plus, you get the extra savings when you go to westshorehome.com/Ross to schedule for your free, no obligation appointment. westshorehome.com/Ross. See website for details. All right, Steve, let's start the Patriots against the Broncos. The Patriots are laying 5.5 points. The total is 41.5. I guess I'll start with this, Steve. Where are you in terms of the downgrade from Bo Nix to Stidham?
So I've got Bo Nix just a hair better than an average starting quarterback. So he's like +0.5. Stidham, there's a lot more uncertainty, but I've got him as a normal backup quarterback, like a -3.5 versus an average quarterback. 4-point downgrade, but yet this line has been adjusted more than 4 points. So I think it is an overreaction. So I am going to be looking towards the underdog. I got 2 plays on this game. I'm going to play first half. I'm playing Denver first half +3.5, Ross. +3.5. Fallen star syndrome. We see this all the time. Everybody, next man up, everyone steps up. Not just the quarterback, the entire team, even the defense. And they'll be balling from the very first play to make up for it. I respect Denver's ability in the altitude. I mean, we saw it. Peyton Manning was donezo. And with the home field, they won their playoff games. Tim Tebow at home, they win playoff games. Denver wins playoff games as home underdogs. I'm going to play the teaser also. I know it's not a long teaser. I'm going to tease Denver up to +11.5 with the Rams at +8.5. Both my plays going to be 2 units.
Wow. Okay. That's an interesting way to go about it. Why are you doing that now when you don't normally do that?
Because I don't think the +5.5 can hold. I think that 5.5 is going to drop. And so I want to lock in +11.5 because even if that line went up, I mean, I'd be teasing to +12. The game's not going to land 12, but it could land 11. And because of that, I want to get in right now.
Got it. Well, I really like the Denver first half +3.5. I like that quite a bit. So I'm going to go 2 units on Denver first half +3.5. I'm also going to put 1 unit on Denver plus the 5.5. Is that a major issue, Steve, to do a half and a game?
No, not at all. It's just we talk about this like when we wheel like all these teasers, and you don't want to get too much exposure. I mean, you're betting 3 units on the Broncos, but you have a correlated but more diversified portfolio. It's fine.
All right. So I think the Broncos have an excellent chance to win the game. I am with you. I think it's an overreaction. That's great how you laid that out there with Bo Nix and Stidham. So I got Denver for 2 units, plus 3.5 in the first half, and Denver for just 1 unit, plus 5.5 for the game in that one. Nothing on the total. Then we move on to the Rams and the Seahawks. The Rams right now are getting 2.5. I think it opened at 1.5, and immediately money came in on Seattle, Steve.
Yeah, so any number at 2 or less, the market loves Seattle. It goes up to 3, the market loved the Rams, back down to 2.5. Fascinating game. The Rams, I think they're half point better than Seattle. Call them equal. They're really close. So if I can get 2 equal teams and I can play them in a teaser, I'm going to do it every single time. Now, I'd be remiss not to mention it's a really bad spot for the Rams. They've been to Carolina, back to L.A. They go to Chicago, back to L.A. Now they got to go up to Seattle. But I would add it was a really bad spot for them in Chicago in the frigid cold, and they found a way to get there. And I love McVay. I love the decisions he makes. I bet on the Bears last week. You know, he doesn't just let his kicker kick a 40-plus yarder in the frigid cold. He goes for the touchdown before the field goal. I love aggressive coaching, and because of that, I will land a little bit on the Rams here.
So that's interesting that you think they're a half point better. Just out of curiosity, does the Charbonnet injury do anything for you? Does that move it even a little bit?
It has to, but like a third of a point. I mean, the fact that Walker's the number 1, right? I mean, you could say 1 and 1A. But I mean, if Charbonnet couldn't make it, it's not like they're going to go with a tandem running backs. I mean, they're just going to give it to Walker 22 times, right?
Yeah, I think that's about right. So I like the Seahawks. I think the Rams are not what they were earlier in the year. It feels like they're wearing down. It doesn't feel like their defensive line is playing with the same vim and vigor. And I think Seattle is on an absolute mission. So I'll be taking the Seattle Seahawks minus the 2.5. I'm debating between 1 unit and 2 units, Steve. What do you think?
It's a great spot for Seattle. And Seattle had a laugher last week. I have no qualm playing Seattle at minus 2.5.
I'll go 2 units on Seattle minus 2.5. I really think they're going to win that game. And I think if they win it, I think they win it by a field goal or more. All right. Love it. That is awesome. Speaking of awesome, Steve, we have some incredible email questions to get to.
Ever wanted to ask a professional sports bettor a question? It's time to Ask Steve.
We didn't talk about the new tax law yet, did we, Steve?
We have mentioned it, but we haven't got into it.
All right, so Nick emailed and said, now that we've reached, and by the way, you can always send me the email questions, ross@rosstucker.com. If you take advantage of any of the sponsors that you hear on the show, like westshorehome.com/Ross or Monarch or whatever, you can go ahead, or even Six Score, because today's episode is presented by SixScore.com. We'll talk more about them with Dr. Chow on Thursday, but make sure you use the code Ross at Six Score. That's SICScore.com for all the latest injury info. But he was wondering how sharps like you, Steve, are approaching betting now that the new tax law is in effect. Are you business as usual, assuming the law will eventually be changed? Are sharps only betting their best bets For those only betting part-time, what do you recommend? Would love to know your thoughts. Thanks.
If
Nick.
you're a recreational bettor, I think it's largely a non-issue. And let's face it, how many people even file a tax return? If you're betting $100 a game, theoretically, every time you win $100, you should put that as a win on your tax return. Not theoretically, you're supposed to. And every time you lose $110, that's a loss. But the bottom line is, you add it up and you just declare. Most people wouldn't declare anything, but if you wound up winning, they would declare the net winnings. All right. Now, there's a big uncertainty. I am not a accountant, so check with your accountant. What defines a session? If you, under the bill, if you win $1 million on all your bets and you lose $1 million on all your bets, you actually technically are responsible for $100,000 in income because you're only allowed to deduct 90% of your losses. Now, what constitutes a session? Is that one game? Or could you say, hey, I've got, under my DraftKings account, I've got one session that lasts 12 months, and I won $50 betting $1 million at DraftKings, so I'm going to declare $50. I know there's people that are going to treat that as one big session like a mutual fund. Check with your accountant. I don't know the answers.
Got it. For a refresher course, that's basically it, right? Is that for people that might not be familiar, you can only deduct 90% of your losses, right?
That's correct. And the key question is, like I said, if I make, $10,000 bets at DraftKings and I win 5 and I lose 5, can I aggregate them all together and say it was one session, or do I have to report them individually as individual bets? Obviously, if they're individual bets, it becomes untenable, and you simply can't gamble anymore under the new tax law.
Highly encourage you guys to make sure notifications are turned on and that you're subscribed, whether it's your podcast app or youtube.com/RossTuckerNFL, because I have a feeling Steve's going to have a bunch of props and parlays on Thursday's show, plus the Dr. Chow injury information. Patreon.com/RT Media. Good luck, everybody. Hope you guys win some money.
Thanks for tuning in to Even Money. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.